All right, here we are. We're back, and I hope I didn't lose everybody. I saw Steve Farmer there, and blessings, Pastor Steve. He and I were talking yesterday, and it's so good to hear confirmation when you hear that God is doing things in everybody's life the same. And so right now, I have nobody watching. Let me view the view. There we go. I've got one person. I don't know who it is, but thank you for joining me. And here's the deal. I'm gonna start back, and it is what it is. So I got this new computer and transferred everything over. And boy, what a test, what a challenge! Because you miss one little button, and you all know how that works. So I've been trying to get it right. But Lori started singing a song. I'm sure it was her. I really think that she was singing this old song. It's a church camp song. If you've never heard it, it goes like this: the windows of heaven are open. I guarantee you, we'd get on that song. We just keep singing it. The blessings are falling tonight. There's joy, joy, joy in my soul since Jesus made everything right. This is the part I like. I gave him my old tattered garment. He gave me a robe of pure white. I'm feasting on manna from heaven, and that's why I'm happy tonight. I gave him an old tattered garment, and he gave me a robe of pure white. Now that's the way God works. Tonight I want to share with you this. Let me bring it up on screen real quick, because this is, and I know it's invest now. And I put returns on investment. I know ROI is typically return on investment. I realize that. I put plural returns on investment because I really believe that we are making investments in two primary areas in our lives. Again, I wish I'd have heard this message a long time ago. I wish I got it a long time ago and understood it, but for some reason I didn't. But I'm sharing it with you tonight because it'll put you on the right track. It's never too late. Well, I hope it's never too late. I suppose there is a never too late time when the investment is going to be a lot harder than it is right now. So let me put it this way. There's never been a better time for you to invest. And I want to go, I don't usually do this, but I typed something up on the computer back in my recliner. And so I want to show you this. Well, you can't read it. I can see on the screen you can't, but I want to read it for you. This will get us started. God formed a covenant with Israel that took the form of a marriage. And I'm just reading this. I don't normally do it, but I'm wanting to tonight to get into our message. And it's not going to be, I say this, I know I shouldn't say this, but I don't believe we're going to have a long time. I just have these few verses that I want to share with you on investing. But before we get to investing, here's what I wrote. Okay, God formed a covenant with Israel that took the form of a marriage. Vows were exchanged at Mount Sinai. They were renewed in the Promised Land in Joshua 8, and then they were renewed again in Joshua 24 when they settled. Israel had prospered materially, but they had declined spiritually. And I want to pause just for a minute, and I want to come back, and I want to ask you, in your life, think about it. You're making investments just like I'm making investments. I'm making investments every day. You're going, well, I don't have a 401k anymore. I don't have this or I don't have that. Okay, but just hang with me. And we're going to look at investments that I believe will make a difference. Israel, they were declining spiritually while they were increasing the material wealth. I want to tell you that there's going to come a point in time where that catches up to you. It caught up to Israel. And so while they had declined spiritually, prospered materially, and they declined because they were adopting pagan idolatry practices. God was a faithful husband in the covenant that he made with them on Mount Sinai and again in Canaan and again in Canaan. He was a faithful husband. And he used a guy by the name of Hosea, a prophet for the northern 10 tribes. I'm not going to get into it tonight. Got into it a little bit more this morning at Beams of Light Church in person. But I just want to show you something that Hosea was told to marry a prostitute by the name of Gomer. The whole thing about that, and I'm not gonna read the rest of it, but the whole thing is the whole book of Hosea. If you go back and read it, that's my challenge. If you go back and read it, you're going to see that it is a depiction, a picture of the faithfulness and love of God, even in the midst of someone that's not being faithful to Him. In fact, it's a wonderful, wonderful story. It's only 14 chapters long. But I want to get, and you're like, well, how does that have anything to do with what we're doing? I've got my earmark here. I've got my earmark at a couple of places, and I want to start off reading in Luke. This is a study we've been on, and I was in Matthew 13 Wednesday, but here's what Luke, the 8th chapter says. He says, I want to explain a parable. These are the words of Jesus. The seed, remember the parable of the sower, the grounds, the 3 grounds, and the 4th ground that only the 4th ground produces. When we're talking about investments, I want you to understand that when he talks about the parable of the sower, and he's really talking about our heart, he's talking about plowing up the ground in our heart and planting the seed and water and then having fruit. Those first 3 grounds in the parable of the sower, Matthew 13, Mark 4, Luke 8, when you read those, we understand that the first 3 produce no fruit. Okay, and there's reasons for that. In fact, one of them, the 3rd ground, is offended by the word. Offended by the word. When the offenses come, then they get choked out. But the 4th ground, I say this all the time, and I say we're only promised a quarter yield. We're only promised a 25% yield because you take that 25 and then you have 75%, the first 3 grounds. But this is the exciting part. The exciting thing is even in that quarter yield, even in that 25% productive ground that absolutely bears fruit, it bears fruit some 30, some 60, and some 100-fold. So you take 1 grain of seed and you're getting 30 times what you plant. You're getting 60 times what you plant, or 100 times what you plant. How many's up for that? How many's up for that kind of an investment? I mean, man, you go anywhere and your broker calls you or somebody says, "Hey, I have got a deal for you." The least you can get is 30-fold return, 30 times what you're investing. So you give a dollar, you're going to get $30 back. That's pretty good stuff. Well, the principle of the sower, the parable of the sower in Matthew, Mark, and Luke carries us over to where we are tonight in Galatians, the 6th and 7th verses, chapter 6, verses 6 and 7. And I just want to read those to you, just 2 verses. And again, then I want to show you the principles of investment. All right, and again, the principles of investment. Don't anybody leave yet. Stay with me, because you're going to get this, and when you get this, it is so simple. God has made it so simple, and we've made it way too hard. So here's what Galatians 6, verses 7 and 8 says, 7 through 9, says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." The world says what goes around comes around. I say it all the time that if you're going to pull one passage out of the Bible and hold to that one, and that one is going to be the true blue of everything, it's this: you reap what you sow. I reap what you sow. Every seed produces after its own kind. Now, we're going to talk about investments here, because it's important for you to understand and I to understand what we're investing in and the reaping and the return on the investment, and why we're getting the return, the ORI that we're getting. He says, don't be deceived. God's not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Verse 8, for he that soweth to his flesh, there's a key, shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Some translations, the original says, if we don't lose heart. All right, so let me show you the first principle. Let me get to it. It's the first principle, and here it is. It's the principle of investment, and the first principle is basically you reap if you sow. You reap if you sow. You got to sow. You're not going to reap if you don't sow. Okay, so I know a lot of people that, you know, they're wanting a financial blessing. They're wanting a prosperity blessing. I mean, I've had them come to the altar and pray and you know, I need to be out of debt. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do something else. And I say, okay, how are your principles, how the God principles working in your life? If you want to receive financial, you give financial. That's because every seed produces after its own kind. That's why I tell people, look, if you are sad, downtrodden, you're discouraged, you're disheartened, you just want to throw your hands up and give up, the best thing you can do is sow encouragement to somebody else. Don't sow sadness, sow happiness. Call up somebody and say, man, I just want to tell you what a blessing you are to me. You may be sitting there going, man, nobody ever does that for me. Okay, are you sowing? I don't have any friends. Okay, the word says he that hath friends must show himself friendly. Well, that church, they just, you know, they're just a bunch of hypocrites, and they're just unfriendly. Okay, you're going there? Then well, how are you acting? Are you planting that seed? Are you sowing? Are you getting this? Now, again, the first principle of investment is you sow or you reap if you sow. So if we're not sowing, we can't expect to be reaping. Then we're going to really look at, and again, we're not going to take all night to do this. I just want to show you this principle because it really got a hold of me, and I hope that it'll get a hold of you. And the next one is the principle of identity. The principle of identity, and we like to talk about identity. You reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. I preach and teach on the identity that we have in Jesus Christ. I love the book of Romans. I love how that it talks about who we are now that we're believers in Jesus Christ. But one of the first things it says, in fact, Jesus said it way back in the Gospels, before the cross, before the resurrection and the new covenant got ushered in. He said, look, if you want to follow me, first thing you need to do is deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. That's what he said. Deny, take up your cross, then you can follow me. Oh, he had a lot of crowd when he was doing the miracles. He had a lot of crowd when they were all hungry and needing a meal. But then when he started getting down to the brass tacks and really the root of his teachings, then he started saying things like, look, you got to eat my flesh and drink my blood. And I mean, people were leaving by the droves. And he looks at his disciples and he goes, will you also go away? And that's what I'm saying to you tonight. Will you also go away just because I share some truth? Because I want to show you the two areas that I promise You and I both, all of you watching, thank you for watching tonight. Thank you for being with me. Thanks for sharing. But I want to say to you, we are investing in one of two areas. Now, sometimes we invest in both areas. Sometimes and you'll see in your life, I see it in mine, I'm investing in one more than the other. I don't do much a balancing act. I tend to get strung out in one area, and that's where I invest in. So where's the best return for my investment? Because I've got it. When you talk about investing time, investing money, investing energy, investing passion, investing thought processes, all of that, you and we're investing it somewhere. We're sowing, and we are reaping. And so after the third principle is this. It's the principle of increase. Okay? The reaping is always more than what we sow. It's an increase. You reap more than you sow. Have you ever noticed that? You're like, man, I don't remember sowing all that, especially the bad stuff. And it's just like, we say, when it rains, it pours. We don't realize that, and might as well give you the last one because it gets us to that. It gets us to this next part. We don't often realize the principle of interval. Now I did interval so that, we got 4 eyes up there. So, but it's really about timing. So the last principle of the investments is in our lives is the principle of interval, or the principle of the timing of our sowing and reaping. So you reap later than you sow. A lot of times we want to sow, and man, we want to reap right now, and that is based on the kind of world that we live in. We live in an instantaneous world. I want it yesterday. When have you got to have that? Well, we want it. We got to have it right now. That's why the drive-ins they're always full. I mean, unless they're just sorry restaurant, fast food. You drive by any of them and they got cars lined up because we don't have time. We certainly don't have time to fix food at home. We got to run through, the drive-through, run over at Quick Trip and get something. I said Quick Trip, Jeremy, you owe me, but. Anyway, you got your ears on. Are you ready to be taught tonight? Okay, so let me go back to this verse. It's on your screen, Galatians 6:7-9. But I want to read verse 8 again for you. For he that soweth to his flesh, everybody say flesh, flesh and the spirit don't agree. The flesh and the spirit are at odds with one another, until one takes control of the other one. The one that's had control when we accept Christ is the flesh. Then we've ushered in now a new agent. There's a new sheriff in town, and they moved in, and all of a sudden the flesh is going, I've had my way all this time. I'm not moving over for anybody. I said that on my sister Karen Davis's page, about quenching the spirit. And I thought about Forrest Gump. Can't sit here, seats taken. And that's the way we need to be. It's a horrible rendition. That's the way we need to be with the Holy Ghost, with the Spirit of God in our life. Flesh, you can't sit here. This seat is taken. It's taken by the Holy Spirit. So back to verse 8, Galatians 6, he says, for he that soweth to the flesh, he that feeds the flesh. When I feed my flesh, here's what happens. When I invest in my flesh, how many of you know that's where most of our investment is for the majority of our life? Because we are trained that way. Hey, it's all about you. I mean, it's all about me. It is. It's all have it your way. I'm going to have it my way. I'm going to go in there, and you may have a menu fixed up, but I don't want pickles, and I don't want this, and I don't want that, and I don't want something else. And okay. We live in a world that we've built our lives around convenience, fast, speedy, got to have it now. That's why we're so in debt. We can't wait. We've got to have it now. Whoever thought of getting the money and having it in your hand before you go buy something? You don't have to do that. Just throw out a card, flip out a card, and it'll all be good. Somewhere down the line, we'll be able to pay it. But you see, we're making investments in our flesh, in what makes our flesh happy. Well, Pastor Mike, you just don't know. I had a bad week, and you guys, I'm telling you, I'm preaching a word that if you're just wanting to be cuddled tonight, that ain't it. That's not tonight. Okay, I want to preach and teach. I want to share the truth of God's word that'll transform your life. I'm telling you, it'll take you back to that song. The windows of heaven are open. The blessings are falling tonight. There's joy, joy, joy in my soul since Jesus made everything right. He set it all in order. I gave him my old tattered garment. The problem is we don't want to give it to him. We want to kind of hold on to it, and you can have it for a little bit. Oh, I want to take it back. It's kind of like what we do with praying at the altar. We go to the altar and we just lay it all there, and then we pick it right back up and take off. And we're still carrying that baggage. We're still carrying that burden instead of laying it at his feet. I gave him my old tattered garment. He gave me a robe of pure white. I'm feasting. Listen to the words of that song. I mean, that's an old song. I'm sure many of you have not heard that. If you've not heard that, let me know you hadn't heard it. But I'm feasting on manna from heaven, and that's why I'm happy tonight. If you're not happy, if you're unhappy, probably because you're feasting on the wrong food. You're investing in things that will not satisfy. I can't get no satisfaction, but I tried. Yeah, we keep trying, and I tried. Yeah, and I tried. I can't get no. No, you won't. I won't. I will never get while I'm feeding the flesh. So, verse 8, get this one in your mind. Please go back and check out this passage. Let God speak to you and help you to understand why we are walking around sowing to the flesh and wondering why we're not having all the holiness blessings come upon our life. Well, there's a reason. He that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. That doesn't sound good to me. That doesn't sound like a wise investment. That doesn't sound like what I want to look at on a return on my investment. Matter of fact, that sounds risky. That doesn't sound good at all. I believe that's something I want to avoid. So is there an alternative? Yes. That's why I say we're either investing in one or the other. You and I are investing on a daily basis, consistently, constantly, either to the flesh or to the spirit. But he that soweth to the spirit, invest in the spirit. He that is planting seed, plowing up the ground, getting everything right, he that soweth to the spirit shall of the spirit reap life everlasting. Now, life everlasting, how many of you will agree that sounds a whole lot better than corruption? Here's what happens. Financially, people invest with purpose. You'll see people invest in, I'm not up on all the stock market trends and all of that. There's really some wise guys that know how to do that. That's not my expertise. But the whole thing is you invest with purpose. You invest with something that has a high risk, but it has a high yield. Or you invest in something that has really, really, really low risk and it has just a low yield, but the low yield is fairly consistent. That's what we do in material things. Amen? So everybody with me? That's what we do. So why don't we understand that this is God's principle? We've used it for wealth, and it does work. We've used it for money, cash, investment. We've used it for that, and it does work. But why don't we then turn it around and go, okay, so I'm either investing in my flesh or I'm investing in the spirit. Can I give you some real? They're going to be kind of hard to hear, but if you got ears to hear and you got a teachable heart, listen to what I'm going to share, and then we'll close. What we want to do is we want to nurse our flesh. We want to cuddle it. We want to stroke it. We want to cater to our flesh. Oh, y'all, come on now. I mean, everything from, man, I excuse me, I've had a hard week, so I think I'm just going to go out and I've been doing good on this diet. I'm going to go out and blow it. I'm just going to go to the buffet and I'm going to eat till I get sick. And I've been struggling and working 9 to 5, and the state fair is coming to town, and it's pre-COVID, and the state fair is coming to town, and so, man, I'm just going to go and I'm going to spend all my money at the state fair. I don't care if I pay my bills or not. I'm going to go and I'm going to have a good time. I deserve it. I deserve it. Y'all still with me? I see some of you still with me. Thank you for staying. That's what we're doing with the flesh. I'm just going to stay in bed a little bit longer. I'm just so tired. When we really need to get up, we need to get our rears in gear and get to work, or we need to get up and get the house clean, or we need to get up and Sunday. What do we do on Sunday? Oh yeah, we go to church. Some do, and you with me? I mean, so we're catering to the flesh. We're catering to the flesh. Oh, I just don't feel like mowing the lawn today, and then all of a sudden we get forecast for 10 straight days of rain. I should have mowed the lawn today. All right, not today, Sunday, but maybe yesterday. The whole point is, we are stroking the flesh. We're catering to it. We're coddling it. We're warm and fuzzy in it. And what we should be doing on a daily basis, Paul said it, crucifying the flesh, not feeding it. Crucify it. Don't coddle it. Crucify it. When it jumps up and it says, "Oh, but don't but me," I'm telling you, I'm crucifying you, flesh, because I'm going to invest not in you, because I know what I get in return. I know what I'm going to reap. And there, let me bring you this one back up. No, it's not that one. It's let's see, it's this one real quick. Might get your identity, the more you sow. Which one is it? Maybe it's the last one. Later. Yeah, later. Well, it's not that. It's okay. Reap. I keep clicking the wrong buttons, y'all. You just gotta know. Sometimes it just works that way. And so, what I want to say to us is, consider where you're investing all your time. Consider where you invest in all your resources. Paul's the same one that said bodily exercise, it doesn't profit much, but spiritual exercise does. He's not saying don't go ride your bike and don't exercise, but he's saying look at the return on the investment. We're talking about eternity. We're talking about not just eternity and not just heaven. We are talking about those returns, but I'm talking about right now. You've heard it. I've said it all my life. You can't outgive God. Don't we say that? How many of you believe it? You can't outgive God. Because just like the parable of the sower, that fourth soil that is teachable, that has a heart that's pliable, that is good ground, that has gotten all of those thorns and those rocks and everything. Look, it's time to get our life in order and start sowing into the spirit man that lives inside of us. Stop quenching him. Stop sinning. Stop hanging. Every time we hang out with the wrong crowd, we are feeding the flesh. We are sowing to our flesh corruption. Every time we go to the places that we know we shouldn't be going to, that's what we're doing. We're sowing into our flesh and we're going to reap corruption. We're making an investment into our flesh and the return is not going to be happy returns. And we've got to remember that we get more than we sow. If you plant flowers, you know how they'll grow, and they tell you on some of them, put them 6 inches, 18 inches apart. Because if you don't, they start multiplying, and then they're everywhere. That's the way our investment and our return is. So I hope that this has been a blessing to you. It's simplified. Sow to the flesh, okay, but understand that when we start reaping corruption, we can't blame God. We can't say, God, where'd you go? God's saying, you're reaping what you've been sowing. Look at the nation of Israel all throughout the Old Testament. You'll see that over and over and over. God's a faithful God. He's a God of love. He's a God of forgiveness. But I got to tell you, I invest in one or the other. And the one I'm feeding the most, that's the one that's the strongest. I hope you're feeding your spirit tonight. If not, start that investment change. Don't start tomorrow, start tonight. Start tonight and say, you know what? I've been investing in the wrong thing. I'm going to start investing in what I know is going to have the very best return. God bless you. Love you. See you next time.